Hi everybody, this is Tony Richards. Passion can't really be stolen, but it can be sort of squashed and limited by you. So here are some things that will cause deterrence to your passion. And the first thing is, and I hate it with a passion, but it is a killer. Okay, it's a killer of your potential. It's a killer of everything you possibly could be as a person. And it will definitely hold your passion at bay if you let it, and that's fear. Number one is fear. It's a major killer of most things, but especially passion. All leaders, I'll just tell you, all people and all leaders are afraid at various times. You're afraid, but now the difference is there are people that allow fear a place in their lives, or they let fear have a foothold. And when fear's like a bad party guest, it doesn't want to leave, right? So it could be 12:30, 1 a.m. and you're ready to go to bed and you're thinking, man, when is this guy going to leave, right? That's like fear. When fear moves in and it gets comfortable, it doesn't want to leave. So all people and all leaders are afraid at certain times, but don't let fear come in and be a permanent guest in your house. Risking looking like a fool releases you from the web of mediocrity. And all leaders, I believe, have to be willing to look silly. Because if you're willing to look silly, it releases you from the power of ego, and it releases you from the power of fear, and then you're able to just sort of have a good time. And when you're having a good time and you're not putting additional fear and pressure on yourself, then you feel more released and less constrained. You know, I've had people come to me and they've asked me to teach them about presentation skills and speaking skills. And I have the first rule anybody will tell you that I've ever worked with in making them a better presenter or a better speaker. The first rule is, it ain't about you. Now, when you get yourself too focused on yourself, when you get your mind focused on yourself, then fear has open field running. But when you focus on the recipient, when you focus on the audience, when you focus on the person that your passion is empowering you to help, fear goes away, because then you're on a mission. And when you get on a mission, and it's logical and it's ethical, and your passion is fueling you, then you can really get on a roll. But when you get your mind wrapped around yourself and what do people think about me, and man, I'm not as thin as I used to be, and I don't know if I'm wearing the right clothes, and I don't know if I'll say the right things, and I don't know if they'll clap for me at the end, or I don't know if they'll be interested in what I have to help them. When you get that dialogue going, fear's moved in and is a bad party guest. It doesn't want to leave, right? So the first deterrent to your passion is fear. You know, I'm just going to tell you, when you go to do something, people may laugh at you and they may ridicule you. I don't know anybody that has never done anything fairly significant that at first most people thought they were crazy. So you've got to get past that. When Steve Jobs said that he wanted a future in computers and everybody was going to have a PC, a personal computer, everybody thought he was crazy. Because at the time, computers filled up a whole room and nobody was going to have a room for their computer, right? So everybody thinks that geniuses or people who really accomplish a lot, people think they're crazy in their infancy. I mean, well, people thought a lot of Thomas Edison's ideas were simply foolish, and maybe some of them were, but he had a passion for inventing new things. He had a passion for making people's lives easier. So that passion, when he didn't get the light bulb, you know, he was 99 times failing on the light bulb, and then he was going to try again, and I think he was successful on the 100th try for the light bulb. He said, guess what? I found 99 ways a light bulb won't work. Right? And that's what passion does. It just eliminates the fear. You don't feel like you're looking stupid. You don't feel like you're looking silly. Your passion is driving you forward, so you can't let fear get a foothold. Number 2 is self-doubt. Self-doubt. And I've noticed one thing about people as I've coached hundreds of people, I've led hundreds of people over the last several years, let's say, is that You as a person do not have any problem believing in someone else. The problem comes in when you believe in yourself. So you can see another person and they can tell you what they are planning on doing, and most of the time you don't have any problem believing that they're going to do it. But when it comes to you, you don't feel that way. It's like when I teach trust, and I ask the question, who do you let down more? Do you let other people down or do you let yourself down? Now the answer always is what? I let myself down, right? That's the way it is in self-doubt. You have no problem believing in another person, but you have problem believing in yourself. Now I'll tell you what, the richest deposits in the world are cemeteries. It's not the oil fields, it's not the diamond mines, it's not Fort Knox. The richest deposits in the world are graveyards and cemeteries, because that's where all the potential has died. All the unwritten songs, all the unpainted pictures, all the unwritten screenplays, all the businesses that weren't started, all the inventions that weren't invented are all lying in graveyards because people had self-doubt and they had trouble believing in themselves. So you've got to get rid of the self-doubt if you want to release your passion. Too many people live their whole lives doubting themselves. Give yourself a break. Believe in yourself, right? You got a voice in your head and your voice is talking to you. You believe you more than you believe in somebody else. And I tell my clients all the time, when you start believing in yourself more than I believe in you, now we're going to be cooking, right? But as long as I believe in you more than you believe in you, you're always going to be utilizing my belief in you. We're not going to do as well as we could if you can't learn to believe in yourself and get rid of the self-doubt, because that's going to suppress your passion. Number 3 is simply disbelief. Disbelief. What makes another person better than you? Think about that for a second. What makes another person better than you? The answer? Not a thing. No person is better than you. No person is more valuable than you. No person has any advantage over you whatsoever, except that they've not been afraid. And most people, like I said, we deal with a certain amount of fear. We just don't let fear grab us and hold on to us. And we believed, and we didn't have self-doubt. So the only difference between an exceptional leader and a mediocre, bad leader is that the exceptional leader believes they can give birth to something. And they think of themselves as a creator, not a victim. And when you begin to think of yourself as a creator, you can create the life you want. You can create the business you want. And passion is a major part of that creation. It's driving your vision, right? So you've got to get your own engine kick-started. As one famous guy once said, you can't hire somebody to do your push-ups for you. You can't hire somebody to do your workouts for you. You got to work through it. You got to learn to believe. You've got to learn to turn down the self-doubt and learn to turn up the self-belief, and you've got to keep fear out there. Now, you can feel fear. I've talked to a guy once who's a pilot of an airplane, and he was piloting a plane, and things began to go wrong on the flight, and instruments began to show negative things were happening, and he was in a place where he couldn't see visually. His radar was out, and he told me, he said, I began to feel fear. And fear began in my ankles, and it began to work its way up to my knees. And I knew that if fear ever got to my head, I was not going to make it. And so that's the way you have to deal with it. You've got to hold fear at bay. You can feel it. You can feel it coming for you, but you have to be resilient and mentally active and turn up your self-belief. And so you got to, as one famous person says, you got to do it afraid sometimes. But you just proceed on, you keep your belief, get a strong support system of people who believe in you. You can release your passion and accomplish dynamic things. Number 4 in this particular grouping is being and feeling unworthy. Feeling unworthy. Do you know I meet a lot of people who don't think that they are worthy of having success? They don't think they're worthy of being a leader. You are worthy of every bit of success that you can generate for yourself. That's the great thing about America, is that It's not generational. Your name doesn't have to be a certain thing to be a landowner. Your name doesn't have to be a certain thing to be in the royalty line. Your name doesn't have to be so-and-so and so-and-so. You can start a whole new tradition in your family by being the first success. I've got a lot of friends that they are the first college graduates in their family ever. Right? So you can be the trendsetter. You can be the first person to do something. You can be the first person that breaks out of the blue crab bucket. And I talk about the blue crab bucket. That's down, if you're from down south and you've ever been down at the ocean in the southern part of the United States, you know blue crabs can't escape the bucket, right? Because you can go down the beach and you can collect blue crabs and you don't have to worry about them getting away, because you can leave your bucket on the beach, and every time one of those blue crabs tries to escape, another blue crab will grab it by the leg and pull it back in the bucket, right? So you don't want to be in the blue crab trap. You might be the first blue crab to ever escape, but you are worthy. You're worthy of escaping. You're worthy of all the success that you can possibly generate for yourself, okay? Nobody knows the heights and the depths of your personal failures like you do, right? Nobody knows all your faults and failures as intimately as you. And you got to get over that. You know, you got to quit replaying those. Obviously, we've all had faults. We've all had failures, but we can't let that be the theme of our lives. We've got to use them as launching experiences and learning experiences to go on to do greater things, and chalk them up as lessons learned, not let them define us. Right? And so we start feeling unworthy when we think that those faults and those failures are the definition of our lives, and they're not the definition of our lives. They are only little things that happen to us along the way that cause us to learn and become wiser. So don't be focusing on what you used to be. Focus on what you want to be. Right? Don't put too much focus on where you've been and who you used to be. Focus on where you're going and what you want to be. Number 5, a thing that will really restrict your passion is if you think too small. If you think small. And so sometimes people have a hard time thinking beyond where they are today, right? It's like the past is just a prologue for the future. Everything is going to be the way it's always been, and I'm not ever going to break out of this rut. And so we get into this rut of thinking that things are always going to be this way. And guess what? Nothing. If you watched my couple of videos on change, then you've bought into the notion that nothing's ever going to stay the same. Things are always going to change. And I think that's encouraging, right? Because if I was in a bad situation, the fact that things were always going to change, I'm going to be excited, right? Because that means things don't always have to be the way the things have always been. And that's a characteristic of leadership. Leaders are always looking to make things better, okay? So I remember I left Kentucky back in the early 90s, and I never wanted to leave Kentucky. I'm a true blue blood, right, from Kentucky. And I left Kentucky and moved to Missouri. And that was the next evolution. That was the next step for me in my career and in my life. Was it easy? No, it wasn't easy. It was hard. I was leaving everybody I knew. I didn't know anybody in Missouri except the people that were hiring me. I was leaving my family. I was leaving a highly successful career in Kentucky. But in Missouri, I met my future wife, and I, got a whole new family. My wife got added into my Kentucky family, and I got a whole new North Dakota family, and I got even better success and higher career heights in Missouri than I had even experienced in Kentucky. But Kentucky was my comfort zone. So when I left my comfort zone, good things started happening to me. And if I would have just stayed in that same mindset and I would have just continued to think in that way, I would have been thinking too small, right? So we got to make sure that we don't want to think too small. And that leads into number 6, which is we get addicted to our comfort zone. We get addicted to the way things have been, and we get comfortable, and we don't want to be uncomfortable. You know, we live in a nation and a world of people where comfort is the thing. And when we get uncomfortable, that's when magic happens. Magic always happens outside our comfort zone. We are afraid to get in our boat and sail out into what we don't know. We don't know what's out there. right? We don't know beyond the dock. We like to keep our boat at the dock, right? Because we know where the dock is, we know where the shore is, we know where everything is. But then when we sail out into water that we've never been in before, that makes us uncomfortable. So we have to make sure that we feel worthy, and we have to make sure that we don't think too small, and we have to make sure that we don't get too addicted to our comfort zone.